Hello and welcome to the Chop It Up Podcast, the show that's unfiltered and unapologetic. Each episode will bring you closer to finding your purpose. And for our loyal listeners, a special surprise awaits you at the end. Be sure to listen all the way through. Now, here's your host, KammieEbk Superville.
Welcome back to the Chop It Up Podcast. Super excited to be back with our listeners. Listen, you guys, I am so excited about tonight's conversation. We're going back to the basics, you guys. Yes, we're going to be talking about relationships. Ooh, a lot of times when we have relationship conversation, we get a lot of listeners. So we're going to try something new. So again, welcome back to the Chop It Up Podcast. You guys already know it's your girl, KammieEbk. And tonight I have the utmost honor of speaking with Bianca Gibson. Bianca Gibson is a social media star. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. But more importantly, she's a social and emotional wellness speaker. Social and emotional wellness speaker. Bianca currently has over 184,000 followers on TikTok. And I think when I kind of accidentally fell onto her page, I was immediately like sucked in. So Bianca, welcome to the Chop It Up, girl. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. You made me sound better than I feel.
Well, that's what we do.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. No, thank you so much for availing yourself. I know you had a crazy schedule. And so certainly I want to thank you. So Bianca, we don't have any agenda. We just wanted to have an organic conversation. There's a lot going on. Certainly now more than ever when it comes to relationships. So I am so happy we are having this conversation because it needs to be had. So tell the people a little bit of your background and really what inspired you to build your social media presence and speaking specifically about Christian relationship and godliness.
Yes. So for me, I am a, follower of Christ. And I believe that it's very important. We have relationships, whether it's marriage or friendships or family. And I believe that it's so important to understand what God says about relationships, how we should treat one another. We have so much being fed to us via reality TV shows, relationship gurus, and they're giving their own opinions as to based on their personal situations or personal experiences. But as you know, we all have different experiences. Your experience isn't my experience. And so our personal experience may be our reality, but it's not necessarily the truth. And so for me, it was heavy on my heart to be able to provide what God says about relationships and how relationships should operate, and to make sure that aligns that in our personal experience, if it didn't align with God, what God says is about relationships are about, to at least teach and educate people how to get to that point, how to achieve, our ultimate best when communicating with one another and trying to attain a healthy relationship with one another.
I love that. So, we live in an interesting society, and being that you and I definitely spoke offline about the importance of being in a godlike relationship. But, a lot of times it's so difficult, right? It's so difficult to follow the principles of the Bible or whether it's biblically sound and really walk this journey that we're walking. So my question to you is, let's be real, right? When you fall, or some people don't even follow the principles, how do you stand in your conviction? Meaning, how are you educating and empowering your audience that no, thus said the Lord, and this is why? Like, how are you able to walk that line where you don't feel guilty?
Right. So I guess the only way to answer that is to kind of put it in practical perspective. And I'll give a personal example of myself. I was in a marriage, but I was married to a narcissist who was emotionally abusive. And as a believer, we're told that divorce is unacceptable, or, you're supposed to forgive and be long suffering and patient and all these other things. And so I was walking the walk that I believed. However, I was in a very trying situation where the other person wasn't fulfilling the obligation of what God called him to be. And so the question was, okay, how does my faith correlate to the situation that I'm in right now? And so a lot of times, I find that people will go to church and, be told one thing in the scripture based on what, the pastor or the preacher has interpreted. And many women stay, and many men might stay in abusive relationships because they somehow think they're fulfilling God's will. And I think this all goes back to, people like, oh, well, interpretation, but God's word, when rightly divided, doesn't contradict itself. And there's no way in God's word that he wants us to be abused. Everything in his word shows us sacrificing ourselves, being a service to each other, loving each other unconditionally, and helping one another. None of it recommends us enduring abuse from someone. And so in that regard, when it comes to applying Christian principles, am I forgiving that person? Okay. Am I forgiving that person? And what does God say about forgiveness? Forgiveness, you can forgive, but it doesn't necessarily mean reconciliation. I can literally separate myself so that I'm not standing in the way of being attacked, slandered, and abused, and still love you from a distance and still keep my principles of belief and what God expects of me. Because you can't change any other person. The only person that you can change is yourself, how you react and you respond. And of course, the Bible does speak about how adultery permits one to divorce. And in actuality, abuse is a part of that as well. When you physically kill somebody in a marriage and spiritually kill them, there's so many scriptures that point to the spiritual side that people don't address. They always address the physical part, but they don't address the spiritual part. And the spiritual part is God says, if we even look upon a woman and lust after her, you committed adultery in your heart. So, it's applying it in a practical way and realizing that you own your allegiance is to God to treat other people the way God would treat them. And at the same time, you can't violate yourself in that process. We have to love others as, at the same level that we love ourselves and more.
Yeah.
So,
it's funny as you even, and thank you for that being so fully transparent. It's funny that you said that. So a lot of our listeners, most of our listeners, 70% are female. So walk us through that experience. Did you both, when you were in a marriage, did you attend marital counseling? Like, did you try to make the relationship work before you made that final ultimatum?
Oh, yes. So I was married twice, and I married two narcissists, believe it or not. And so I had to get therapy to figure out, why did I choose two distinctly different people, but the same literal personality and the same demonic spirit, really. And so for me, in each of my marriages, I literally went to premarital counseling before going to get married. So I thought I was doing all the right things. But one thing you have to know, people can pretend well. We pretend well. We live in a world of fantasy and delusion. And then sometimes we lie to ourselves, we want to be married. We want to have a family. We don't, we have this image. And sometimes we can try to force people into that image and not realize that's what we're doing. And so I went through premarital counseling. When everything happened and the abuse was occurring, we did counseling. We went to Christian counselors. And the funny thing about it, depending on the type of person that you're with, people can go to counseling all day long. They can say all the right things in counseling, but their actions is what means most. If their actions doesn't align to what they're saying, nothing's going to work. You can go to counseling, pay thousands of dollars, but if the actions remain the same, is not going to work. So I went to counseling, tried that. It wasn't working. The behavior was still persistent. The recommendations that were spoken in the counseling wasn't taking effect. I did what was recommended, but the person I was with did not. And so at that point, it was time for me to separate myself. I set healthy boundaries. You're supposed to set healthy boundaries. And if those boundaries keep being violated, and you're losing your sanity to the point where like you literally are dying in a relationship, you can't function. So you have to leave.
So Bianca, I want to ask you a question pertaining to narcissistic tendencies. That seemed to be, I swear to you, girl, I never heard about that before COVID. I swear. I'm like, what? But I want you to explain, what are some of those tendencies? Because I got to know if I ever dated a guy like that. I'm trying to figure that out in my own self. So What are some of those narcissistic tendencies?
Narcissists have a tendency to think highly of themselves, grandiose idea. They are typically the center of attention. When you first meet a narcissist, they tend to do a lot of love bombing at the beginning, where they put you on a pedestal. They tell you that you're like the best thing they've ever had. Everything moves very quickly. You feel like you're the soulmate. And the real reason why they try to paint this picture like you guys are soulmates is they are doing what a technique is called mirroring you. So they ask you a lot of questions. You're thinking that they're trying to get to know you, but really they're trying to glean from you information because they themselves don't have an identity. They basically, what's the word I'm looking for? They piggyback on other people's identity. So when they're asking you all these questions, they're trying to get an idea of what your desires, what your goals are. And so what they'll do, if you like coffee, then I love coffee. If you like dancing, I love dancing. And they basically mirror to you what you love and what you want. So now you fall in love with the idea of yourself, what you wanted. And so once you get into that relationship, what they quickly do is start the very things that they said they love about you, they begin to devalue you. They begin to make those things a problem. And so you buy into this false identity that they presented you, and they begin this push and pull technique. The push and pull technique is where they show you a little bit of love and attention, and then they withdraw themselves from you. And that it actually causes a chemical reaction in your brain, which is almost like being addicted to drugs, because it sets off this chemical where you're striving for this attention. They pull it away, and now you're like confused and have cognitive dissonance because you're like, wait a minute, why is he pulling away? Is it me? What am I doing? And you're now trying to work your way up to get that person's approval, trying to figure out what you did wrong. And you're always searching for this false character that they painted at the beginning, but that character never really existed. It was a character that they made up and mirrored off of your goals and your desires and your dreams. And now you're trapped in a trauma bond with a push and pull, which literally you're addicted to him. You're addicted to, okay, he wants me now, but now he doesn't. Now I got to strive for his attention because I missed that. It's a chemical imbalance.
What?
They don't ever admit that they're wrong.
Stuff.
That's just a few. But the main thing to know with a narcissist too, they're never wrong. They do a lot of gaslighting. They are masters at gaslighting. They will take factual events and situations, especially if you've told them about your weaknesses, your vulnerabilities, what's happened in your past. They will they have great memories. They will use those things that you've told them. They will use that to demean you, to tear you down later on. They will take factual situations and then they will manipulate the intentions and the motives to make you feel like you're crazy. Because you're like, yeah, I remember that situation where we were talking to so-and-so, but then they'll twist your motive. Well, yeah, you were talking to him because you were interested in him. And you're like, Wait a minute, that was just a friend. Yeah, they do that a lot.
Wow. Girl, thank you. That's some deep stuff. Wow. So you know what? Let me ask you this, because that's woo. All right. What are some traits, okay, as a woman, right? As a woman that's dating out there in the marketplace, right? What are some traits that we should look out for? Not necessarily a narcissist, right? But just in general, like, what are some healthy dating traits or healthy relationship traits?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say if you're dating someone, you always have to be very discerning, and very watchful in the very, always, not just in the beginning, but throughout. Because when discernment is watching for certain patterns of behavior over a period of time, okay? And when you're doing that, you're looking for consistency. Because see, everyone puts on a front at the beginning of the dating, you know what I mean? So you see their representative 3 to 6 months out, some people even longer, a year. But what you are doing as you're dating is watching for patterns. Now, some tips with that is a person self-serving? Do they put themselves first all the time? Or do they make way to serve you? And one of those, a simple thing would be, okay, let's go on a date. And they say, okay, I want to meet here at this spot, at 7:00. They don't even ask you, what would you like? Right, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. They can already want something, but you're just now meeting and dating, and you're not going to ask me what my opinion is or where would I like to go. That's self-serving. That means that they already put themselves as a higher priority than you. A person who they want to glean you for information, but they're very withholding on providing you that same level of information. That's a red flag. Another red flag is someone who, when they're talking and you ask them pertinent questions about maybe their relationship with their parents or their ex or what have you, they give you very surface level answers, and it's very short. And again, that withholding. If they're short and they give you surface level answers, and if they don't like you asking them questions and they see that as you're interrogating them, that's a red flag. If they feel like you're interrogating them, that's a red flag. Okay. A person who they put you off. If you're calling them and they have literally shown interest in you, and you're calling them and texting them, but they initially show you attention, but then they want to leave you on read for hours or a day, and then act like, what's your problem? What's your problem? They're trying to humble you. They feel like they think you have too much confidence. Oh, she thinks she's cute. I need to humble her. That's a red flag. Those are just a few.
So you know what's so crazy? So check this out, right? Since we chopping it up. In my dating adventure, I recall dating this guy. And like, honestly, like, Bianca, to be honest with you, I don't overthink things. Like, when it comes to my dating life and stuff, I'm always like, I go off a vibe. I go off of if the feeling is right, if I'm feeling somebody. And like you said, if they're showing that they're interested, I'm going to rock with you. I'm that type of person. I really don't overcomplicate things. But I'm gonna tell you this. I remember dating this guy in my past. I had a really good job. And like you said, it was brand new. So I was excited. So after work, I would go see him. We'll go out, we'll hang out, and I'll never be tired actually, and have to go to work the next day. But I noticed that when he got comfortable in the relationship, I noticed that those dates started winding down. I noticed that he will literally go MIA for over a week, like 2 weeks, like 3 weeks. I'm like,
Yes.
what? And so Bianca, but check this out though. I was way younger than what I am now. I'm more wiser, you know what I'm saying? But like, I never understood it. And the thing about it is, it always made me feel weird. Like, yo, what's going on with you? And he would answer, and his response, very lackluster. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? But I never challenged him because we get back into the groove. Everything is good. You know what I'm saying? He wine and dine me. And it's like, again, another lapse. And it's only until I was out of that situation is when I realized, like, yo, this dude was crazy. He was trying to play me. Yeah. But let me ask you, do you think he was a narcissist?
I don't think I think everyone has a level of narcissistic tendencies. We all do, you know what I mean? But a narcissist, the true definition of a narcissist, they have no ability to feel empathy. They never realize that they are wrong, and they lack self-identity. So we have narcissistic tendencies, all of us do, but narcissists are on a whole nother level.
So what was this guy's situation? Because I never got to the bottom of it. Like, he would only apologize, and he literally never explained why he goes weeks without communicating.
Yeah, well, that one just seems like maybe he was dating multiple people, or he had some insecurities and didn't want to make commitments. And so a lot of times when you see in dating, people just don't know how to maturely, effectively communicate. You know, you can date multiple people and be honest with the person and say, hey, I'm dating multiple people and I just want to get to know you better, enjoy our time together. But, you know, I just want you to let you know that I am dating multiple people, and people can respect that. But a insecure, immature man, they rather hide and try to play this role, and they don't know how to communicate because they have a lack of, you know, maturity. And, you know, some of them just don't want to commit, or they have fear from past hurt and pain that they're allowing to affect their current situation.
Yeah, I love that. And so, yeah, girl, it was one of those situations where I was like, yeah, I'm out. I'm like, deuces. I'm like, yeah, I do not do roller coaster rides. I don't need no relationship guru. I don't need nobody to tell me that this relationship is trash.
Yes.
But the thing about it is the reason why I kind of stay longer in it, because this was one of the best relationships I had. Like, when we were together, it was so magnetic. It was just like the vibes. We used to laugh. It was that type of like relationship where you connect on so many different levels. So that's
Let me tell you about that.
Okay.
This is what I see happens with a lot of women, and it happened to me. We get caught up in the idea of the fantasy, the euphoric feeling of the dating, of getting to know one another, to going on trips, for us going to eat together, you know, or if you have children, oh, we're spending time together. And so we're like a family, you know what I mean? And literally you're doing these acts, but it does not equate a real relationship, but the acts itself are kind of what relationships do, but it's not really a true relationship. A relationship includes those acts with also understanding you emotionally and mentally. That's why during COVID, so many people end up figuring out that they didn't even know their mate, or they hated their mate. Because see, we get caught up in the niceties and the routine of going to work, oh, we're doing dinner and all those other things. But when it comes time to actually have quality time and talk and connect, we can't do it. The familiarity that we experience sometimes is related to our past trauma, or what we have had before in our past. But chemistry is not compatibility.
Ooh, whoa. Hold up now. Yo, listen, you got to say that again. Chemistry is not
Compatibility.
Wow. Yo, see, I didn't even know. I was just, like you said, I just love the vibes. But that's amazing. Chemistry is not compatibility.
That is correct. Because you realize with chemistry, sometimes you don't even know what it is, right? It's just a feeling, okay? And that feeling, that's why when people start out in chemistry with relationships and one person grows in their maturity, you're like disconnected because now this person's grown and they're still here. And now you guys don't meet anymore because the familiarity of whatever trauma, pain, past that you guys connected with, this person healed and this one is still staying here and now your relationship doesn't work. Whereas compatibility, you can actually point out we're compatible. We believe the same spiritually. You know, we love this type of music together. That's compatibility. You know, oh, we're both entrepreneurs. We're into real estate. That's compatibility. Those are things you can put your hand on. Chemistry is something that it's a feeling that is unexplainable because it's in your subconscious mind and it's based off of childhood trauma or experiences that you had in your past that you really haven't come to terms with.
Wow. Wow. I ain't even know what to say after that. I gotta unlearn some things out, you know? That's what I'm saying. Like for me, relationships, it's simple for me, but it's really not. Like what you just said and how you just explained it so eloquently. Chemistry is not necessarily compatibility. That's amazing. But Bianca, let me ask you, do you think if we go into relationships with that mindset, do you think it becomes too monotonous, meaning it becomes work? Like, okay, I know relationships are work, so let me don't say that.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I don't know. I feel like when you go in with that mindset, it becomes like, I don't know. I just feel like, yeah, it just becomes work. Like it doesn't feel natural. Like you fall in love with a guy, you fall in love with a girl, and the vibes is right. And like, I know, I understand what you're saying, but I'm just wondering if there's a fine line.
I believe we've all bought into Disney fairy tale that we're going to find our prince or our princess and it's just going to bing, bang, it happens. Life is not like that at all. The reality of it is with everything you do, whether it becomes your work or your career goals and dreams, you don't start anything without counting the costs and preparing for it. You don't build a house on sand. It takes work. So why would we approach relationships without thinking about it? It isn't something that just, oh, fairy tale happens. Love is a choice. It's an action and we have to work at it. That means that you're coming to the table with two complex individuals. It's not something that just automatically connects. That's a lie that I believe media has taught us and society has taught us. That's why we have a high divorce rate, because we do come to relationships haphazardly and we don't think about all the things that we need to prior to jumping in. We don't ask the hard questions that need to be asked. We just kind of, oh, okay, frivolously jump into it. And then when the hard things come our way and the storms hit the house, we don't have no foundation. And it's done and it's over with. Mm-hmm. So you got to think about it before, then after. But the reality of it is, if you don't want to think about it that deeply, then you're going to have surface level relationships. And many people do have surface level relationships. It's very surface level. We saw that in COVID. You had more cases of domestic violence during COVID. You had more people who actually are getting divorced when they went through COVID, because a lot of us prefer the easy life, the surface level. It's the same with healing. We don't want to deal with a childhood trauma because that's too much to handle. But it's hard to handle and go after your healing. And it's also difficult to stay in a toxic relationship. So you got to choose your heart, or you're always going to be living on the surface level here and never really satisfied, always looking and searching.
Well, you see me, I'm like speechless, child, because one thing with me, I listen and I take notes, whether it's writing them down or mentally. And what you are saying right now, you're preaching, you know, and it's a lot, you know, like you said, relationships are work. And I think someone said that to me. They said, Kamisha, like, you work so delicately building your business and building your brand. You don't think you have to work the same when it comes to relationship? And I said, no, I don't want to have to work. Like, I don't want to have to work so hard in a relationship the same way I work in building my business. That's just like too much work. I want love that's easy. I want love that, like, he understands me, we understand each other. Like, I feel like I'm so easy to deal with because I'm very good at communicating. If I'm not happy, I'm going to tell you. If I am happy, I'm going to show you. And my thing is, like, I don't want to be in a relationship where it's tough. Like, why you didn't text me back? Why is it going on 6 hours and I hear from you? Like, I don't want to be that type.
Right.
I've never been that. So it's like, because I don't want that, and because I know how society has gotten since after COVID and even before that, there is a friction. Don't you feel it, Bianca? Don't you feel that there's a friction between man and woman?
It's a gender war going on right now. I always say it's not even a race war, it's a gender war.
Yes.
And it's gotten worse.
Yes.
And so I don't think relationships necessarily have to be, I think there's a difference. There's a difference in difficult and work, okay? Relationships don't have to be difficult, but they are work. Your work can be enjoyable. Your work can be pleasant. When you're doing what you love to do, it doesn't seem to be work. So there's a difference in a difficult relationship and a relationship. We're always working, right? So having a relationship that is easy is not necessarily easy. It's still work because you have to put the time in, and you're help servicing that person, they're servicing you. So it's always time and balance, you know, that's not easy, but it doesn't have to be burdensome. It doesn't have to be difficult. And so you can find what you're looking for. And it doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to have drama. It doesn't have to have friction and agitation. We all are going to have conflict from time to time, but it doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't.
Right. I love that. I love that perspective. I love that. And I could receive that. I could definitely receive that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I could receive that for sure. Awesome. Yeah. Girl, listen, you speak it to my soul, honey.
Yeah, because nobody, I mean, when you're at your level, especially, you know, with women who are entrepreneurs, who have something going on, the last thing we want is to come home just like a man. The last thing he wants to come home and be dealing with some drama. Like, we want to come home and be able to just relax in our mate's arms, to be able to have somebody that is there, that's loving, comforting. You know, we don't want to have a deep conversation every night. You know what I'm saying? Talking about the ills of the relationship or the world. You don't. Yes. And so I believe that can be achieved. You just have to connect with somebody who has the same mindset. And that's why it's so important for me to find a man that is a godly man, because a man that is a godly man, his trust, his faith is in God. So when everything else is going chaotic at his job and everything else, I know that he's not going to take that out on me. He's taking that before the Lord. So I can be there as his nurturer, someone there that he can love on, and I can love on him, but I don't have to be abused because the world has treated you so badly. And same with me. I don't have to treat you so badly because of whatever I'm dealing with in my workspace or everything else. It doesn't have to be that. And when you have the same belief systems and core systems, it shouldn't divide or cause confusion. It should bring unity, and unity brings peace.
I love that. My sister, yo, me and you got to meet up. We got to host an event. Like, I already told you, let's go. We're going to do internationally. We're going to start locally first.
Right.
No,
it's good to dream big, though.
Yes, of course, baby. That's what we do. I'm a Virgo, so you already know everything is big. No, but I love that. That is so beautiful. Bianca, listen, I got to ask you a question, girl. All right, so check this out, right? I want you to decode what just happened. So check this out. So your girl, I went to a fancy schmancy event. So, I'm having fun, networking, blah, blah, blah. After a certain while, I'm like, I ain't networking no more. The music hit my head, and you already know your girl is having a good time, da, 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 da. But I saw someone, right? And so we exchanged information, again, networking, business, all that good stuff. And they reach out. And I love the email, the correspondence that they sent. It was a beautiful correspondence, very direct. And I love, the wording. So I was excited to speak to the person because the wording was something to this effect. I would love to get to know you. I'd love to know more about your organization, your company, and see if there are any synergies between us and or, outside of work. And I said, awesome. I love that. I love a man and or a woman, if, just to be direct. Like with me, when it comes to business, I'm very direct, right? And so I love the fact that, and I love men that are direct and know who they are. So I was excited to speak to the individual. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I love to, connect with you, da, da, da. So we're talking, having a great conversation. Immediately, something switched. I don't know what switched, but child, it switched. And he was like very abrupt. And that was the end of that. My question to you is this, because it's been bugging me. It's really been on my, like, what the hell just happened? What happened in that convo between that meetup, right? Meeting me at the event. We had a great conversation, followed up with an amazing email. And when I initiated a conversation, it was like, what's up with that?
So I can't really decode that because I don't know exactly what was said. But typically when those things happen, when you have a conversation, and depending on what you all were talking about, whether it was a surface level conversation or maybe it was a deep level, I'm not sure. But if there was something said that maybe went a different direction than his core beliefs, or maybe it was different where he was like, yeah, I can see I don't want to deal with that in the future, or maybe her mindset is something that is closed off on this particular subject, that would be the reason why he kind of was like, no. Instead of having more dialogue, again, it goes back to effective communication, because sometimes we can be talking and I might say something or you answer your question, but you need to dig a little bit deeper to understand why I think the way I do or feel the way I do. But sometimes we're quick to make a judgment instead of communicating, and it happens so often, you know what I mean? We're quick to write people off or shut the door instead of learning how to dialogue and communicate. Because the reality of it is, you're a wonderful, intelligent Black woman with many things, advantages, right? So even if you couldn't connect on a personal, intimate level, you all could have did something maybe business-wise together. And so I think sometimes we limit ourselves to, putting people in a box like, okay, I'm interested in him, as a personal connection, when we should be thinking, man, this person, they're beautiful, not only, physically, but they're mentally, business-wise, there's more to them. And so if we can't even match on a personal level, maybe we can work together on something else. How can we be beneficial to one another? That's it.
Bianca, we need to open up an agency, girl. We need to open up an agency, all right? Oh my girl, you saw me, right? I was getting all hype. Bianca, oh my gosh, let me tell you. And normally I wouldn't even share that, especially on this amazing platform. People, they nosy, but I had to, because it really left me like, yo, what did I do? Like I was bubbly. I was so excited to talk to him because I was like, oh, great. And immediately I was like, damn, man, what the hell did I do? And I could not figure it out. And oh my gosh, girl, listen, thank you.
And the other big problem with that, I feel like sometimes our pride gets in the way, because a lot of times, in that situation, and again, I always tell men this too, and they get really like, ugh. But I'm like, in those instances when somebody ghosts you, be the bigger person and say, hey, I really enjoyed our conversation, and it will help me in future conversations when I'm, dating, even though we might not have worked out. If you could just let me know what I might have said or did that was a turnoff to you. That level of humility and decreasing the pride will also be helpful. And then it'll also put heaps of coals on their head, because they'll realize how insignificant and immature they are in their effective communication skills.
I love it. You're absolutely right. Yes.
It's kind of like a job interview. You know what I'm saying? When you leave a job interview, you want some feedback.
Yes, you're right. Well, girl, I ain't asking for no feedback with this situation. I'm like, I'm good. Child, I don't want no feedback. He showed his colors, child. I was like, I'm good. But no, that's, ladies and gents, please listen to Bianca.
Yeah. No, and again, they do show their true colors. Anybody that does that, you don't want to affiliate with them, because they show that they don't have good communication skills. And I think some of it is just the immaturity,
Absolutely.
It is.
Absolutely. Yeah, oh, girl, this is New York City, so we go through so much. But Bianca, where are you? What state do you live in?
Ohio.
Oh, awesome. How's the dating life in Ohio? It has to be different from New York.
I would say it's very different. I don't know. I think personally in Ohio, we just have a lot of colorism here. And so it's unfortunate. A lot of colorism.
Really? Okay. Yes. Well, girl, that seems to be national now. That seems to be, yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Wow.
But dating here is a little bit different because of that. And then, like you said earlier, this whole tension between male and female is just huge. And a lot of men thinking, oh, I'm just going to date foreign people. I'm going to go and date out of as a solution. And the reality of it is the problem is not your particular culture. The problem is your mindset. You know what I'm saying? Because you think that you going to a different culture is going to somehow fix your problem, when women are women, no matter what culture they're in. Now, there might be some societal differences or what have you, but women are women. And if you travel around the world, every culture has their problems.
Absolutely.
So it's all about how do you work on yourself, and also make sure the circle, who are you gravitating to? Because I had to check myself. I keep attracting narcissists. You can't control who you attract, but you can control who you entertain.
Well, that might be an oxymoron, you don't think? You cannot control who you attract. With that said, can you, when you are doing the self-work, whether it's therapy or the self-evaluation, and you notice certain traits, right? Like you spoke about trauma and really understanding those trauma. Can you not change? And by that change, and internally, externally, you'll start attracting difference?
That's something I spoke about before. I have a different way of thinking about that because honestly, I do believe that, what the energies you put out, you do get back to a certain extent. But I also believe that good people get jacked up people, because a lot of times you can be a healed whole person. And when you're healed, people who are not healed gravitate to you because they see, Dag, that's what I want. They see in you what they want to achieve. And so you end up being someone that might attract broken people, not because you're broken, but because you're whole. And so that there's a different side of that. So I do believe that when you're healed, you do attract those, and you have a positive outlook. You can attract those who also have a positive outlook. But there's the other side of the coin that you also attract broken people because of the fact that you're achieving. You have those bottom of the bucket, crabs that wanting to get to the top. So they surround themselves like, ooh, you know what I mean? And alabobbling the person that they're like, oh, I want to be that person. But really they're like crabs in a bucket. You know what I mean? So you can't control who you attract, but you can control who you entertain. You're going to attract multiple levels of people, because if you're a person about purpose, your light is shining.
Child, preach on it. You're right.
Yeah.
And that's in business. That's also an example for business as well.
Yes.
Yeah. For so many different facets of your life. Girl, listen, I love it. And girl, I got to compliment you. Your website is banging. Like, I love it. It's so detailed. I just love it. Like, seriously, girl, we got to do some events. I think I said to you initially that the way that you talk, right? Your purpose, right? Your purpose and what God has aligned you to do is so amazing. I took a look before we spoke. I was stalking your page. One Saturday, it was crazy. I was on your page watching videos after videos, and I'm looking at the engagement of your audience, and there's so many men that's going back to back, and X, Y, and Z, and you just hitting them scripture, and you just hitting them with logic. And I'm like, damn, who is her? Like, I gotta meet her. Like, I love, let me tell you one thing about me. I'm so attracted to beautiful minds, and I love women and men that are so that has that intellect. And I think that's lacking, right? The honest conversations, but intellectual conversations. Right. Yeah. And so I love that. And I love that there are so many men that really engage with your content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting. And the whole Kevin Samuels thing has been a lot more engagement.
I didn't want to say it, but
it's been a lot more engagement. And I think it's kind of, it's a double-edged sword, it is a double-edged sword. And one thing that I'm always growing myself, and sometimes it's hard. And you probably know this as an influencer, you get a lot of negativity, and being able to balance the negative with the positive, and also know that to not allow it to deter you on your purpose and your mission. And, it's something that I'm growing into, but being able to speak in the spirit of love, even when they come at me with all fangs coming out, blood dripping, to be able to respond and still be able to disagree, but do it in a respectful way, in a loving way. And it's okay if we agree to disagree, but I'm still going to hold my position and still also bless you while you hold a different position. And there's so many people, especially men, a lot of us are, and women, we are walking contradictions, and it's funny because they're like, oh, well, it doesn't matter how he says it, Kevin Samuels, it's the truth. And I'm like, well, I challenge you on that, because if a woman said what he said towards men, you will be like, oh, well, look at how she said it. If your wife or your spouse said something to you in the wrong way or tone, you wouldn't be saying it didn't matter. You would be saying it does matter, because even if she said something that was truthful, the way she said it would matter. And so sometimes I think we're just walking contradictions. It's that gender war. We want to blame and shame one another and criticize one another, and we don't really come together and create unity.
I love it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I do have to play a little devil's advocate. So my question is, being that we are talking a little bit about, well, you brought up Kevin Samuels, and we're going to talk a little bit about him as well. A lot of folks, so there is, for those who don't know Kevin Samuels, y'all gonna Google him. But for the most part, there is a conversation that's being had where you have one side of the population that says, you guys shouldn't be bashing him because, like you just said, Bianca, you said that it was the truth. But there's another side that says, even though it's the truth, it's the way that he said it. So my devil's advocate is, why are we so sensitive as a population? Since when we don't have backbone? Like if somebody says something aggressively or whatever the case may be, without love, whatever the case may be, right? If it's still the truth, it's still the truth. Because I go back to the Bible, right? And many of the Pharisees did not like Jesus. When he walked, right? When he walked and he spoke the truth as the truth, he was told, he was challenged, he was chastised, and he was told, whose truth is that? Right? And so a lot of that was the conflict that he had while he was on earth. So my devil's advocate in this situation with Kevin, though I haven't followed his career and his dialogue so much, but I get what a lot of people are saying, is even though he said things harshly, like you're gonna die alone, right? Yeah. If it's the truth, and that we're not using that as an example, but if it's the truth, then why are we still so offended? Why aren't we as a population thick-skinned? Why so many of us are so like passing through? Oh, we have to appease. We live in a culture where we have to appease each other. Nah, the truth is the truth. You suck.
Right. So there's my opinion is, whose truth is it? So that's where I start out. Whose truth is it? We're told by society that we all get to determine our truth, right? But that's contrary to what God says. The only truth that exists is our Creator's truth. We get to have opinions about the truth, but gravity is gravity. You can say gravity don't exist all you want, but jump out that airplane and guess what? You're going to fall to the ground and die. So we don't get to determine truth. So when people say that he mentioned the truth, I've made a post about how to determine whether someone is using truth and deception, because see, the biggest form of manipulation is not somebody lying to you. See, I can sit here and tell you I got on a pink dress and you gonna look at me like she crazy. You ain't got on a pink dress. But if you did not see me and I had a picture in front of here, I could say I have a pink dress, and guess what? You would be deceived because you don't really see behind that picture, right? This is how manipulators work. They use a portion of truth and then they pervert it and they twist the intentions and the motive of that truth. And I'll give you an example of how he did that. So he would, all his followers would quote, women divorce at an 80% rate. They initiate divorce 80%. And so you would hear this rhetoric and men will come to Black women like, y'all are the one that's divorcing. Y'all don't want to, work out the marriage. Y'all leaving because y'all know that it benefits y'all to divorce. That was the narrative. But the truth of the matter is, men historically and statistically do not file for divorce because they feel like the law and the court system doesn't favor them. So they're not going to be quick to run to the court to get a divorce because they already feel like financially they're going to lose. They're going to lose their children. They're going to lose more money, their retirement. So they will endure. It's better to keep, what's the quote? It's better to keep her.
It's cheaper to keep her.
It's cheaper to keep her, right? Mm-hmm. That is cheaper to keep her. So we know the reason why. And you got to ask, in order to get the truth, instead of quoting statistics, which are factual, facts do not equal truth. I'm going to say it again. Facts do not equal truth, because facts change over a period of time the more you research information. Truth is found when you ask what, when, how, why, and where. When you ask those questions, then you get the full understanding behind the facts. White people use that all the time and say Black people are criminals. They're more violent than any other culture. And guess what? They use statistics to back what they have to say. But it's not until you delve into the why, the how, and what that you find out, man, there's a systemic racist system in place where they literally target Black men and women, that they literally put drugs in the ghettos, that they literally set a divide between the economics inequality, so that you then get a bigger picture to realize, no, it's not that the Black people are more criminals. They've been criminalized. That's the truth. So when it comes to Kevin Samuels, a lot of his so-called truths were biased with opinions that were not, and thought process that were not actually truth behind those statistics. And so he gathered his following using a portion of truth, and people could resonate with that. But then it was a little slither of hate, a little slither of disrespect and demeaning. And we can't really compare that with the truth that Jesus did, because guess what? Jesus lived by what he taught. Kevin Samuels died with an escort. An escort, the very type of woman that you was telling people were worthless and no value. She was over 35, over 200 pounds, that you called worthless and undervalued, but you dying with one, and you dying alone. Make it make sense, because it ain't mathing up.
Well, here's the thing, okay? Girl, listen, all right? All right. For those who don't know, certainly, because we do have a diverse pool of listeners, Kevin Samuels is a notorious, I don't want to say infamous, notorious YouTuber who made his career. He's a relationship image consultant / image consultant who made his career really talking to women, and certainly women of color, and kind of checking them and calling them out. And so he garnered a huge following online, and he recently died. So for those who do not know who we are talking about, Bianca, that was a lot that you said. And I have no response to that. My thing with this is that, it's really a strange way to die. I can't even put my mind around it. But wow. So his legacy. Let's talk about legacy. Because a lot of people now are talking about that legacy, right? What would your takeaway be as to his legacy?
So I made a list for you of the popular things that was in most of his videos. Okay. So Kevin Samuels would say, men don't care about fair. That's why men conquer people, winners and losers. We want to win. He also used to say fairness means you get an opportunity, but not an outcome. You get an interview, but not the job. So that was his philosophy towards relationships. He says pretty privilege gets you into the club for free. So he would make it seem as though, women will use their pretty privilege, as an advantage to get their way. He also would say women are okay with not fair when it benefits them. So you shame, insult, guilt, the need to be right. So basically, he wanted to reveal the hypocrisy behind women, saying like, if it doesn't benefit you, then it doesn't serve you. It's not right. But when it does benefit you, then it's okay. He also said it's a privilege to work in a man's world. That was his message. Equal shot, not equal opportunity. That was his message. Men are not complaining like women. What effort are women putting into today? He was known to say most women want the top 10% of men, but it's unrealistic. And the other thing he would always say, if you're settling for a high paying man who doesn't bring me outside babies and embarrassment. If you're a woman who wants a high value man, you need to make sure that you understand that he's going to exhaust his options. Pretty much, he's going to cheat, and you need to accept that. He also called women who were over 35 and over leftovers of no value. He also said that Black women do not fit the beauty standard, and they look like linebackers. So yeah, that's the legacy that I heard and throughout many of his videos.
When I was in school, in college, I took a course, and the course was in journalism. And so there's something in journalism that reads, if it bleeds, it reads, right? If it bleeds, it leads, right? And so that has always been our culture, especially in the Western Hemisphere. So those assertions that you just mentioned, do you believe that they were just that? They were just salacious?
I do, because see, he spoke to our need of survival, the fight or flight, and so pain and love are the most powerful feelings. So he tapped into the men's pain of not being heard. And he also tapped into the hurt, of basically women and telling them where they aren't accountable for and what they needed to improve. And so it's kind of like seeing a reality show. We like to go see the dog fight, we like that. We like to stay in that anger stage. That's why those things go viral, and the self-help and healing do not.
Yeah. Girl, whew, this was a great conversation. Oh my gosh. I feel so uplifted. Such a healthy dialogue.
Likewise.
Thank you. Thank you so much for availing yourself. My God. All right. So don't want to put you on the spot, but you got to give the people a little bit of tips as we leave this conversation. What are your tips to living a more wholesome life, right? Whether you're in a marriage, you're in a relationship, or just single, and you are looking or seeking someone, right? What are your tips to live a wholesome life?
My first tip, and this is always something I mention throughout every video, is knowing who you are and knowing your purpose. If you don't know who you are, that's the foundation of everything. If you don't know who you are, then somebody else can come in and tell you who you are, or you'll live off of somebody else's goals and dreams. You have to know who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, your challenges, and be able to be okay with who you are, accept who you are, love yourself, know that you're acceptable and significant and secure. The second thing is to know your purpose. We all are trying to figure out what's my purpose here in life. When you feel like you don't know your purpose, you're like a nomad wandering. And so you live life haphazardly. And so in order to have peace and direction, knowing who you are and finding your purpose are the two most important things I recommend.
Love it. Love it. My God, I am so grateful to have you as a friend, a budding friend. Yes, thank you. And I'm just so grateful to have you as a person. Like, man, you're blessed. And so thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Bianca, having. You're welcome. Bianca Gibson, emotional and wellness speaker. I want to say that emotional and wellness expert.
Hey, the only expert is our creator. That's the only
it.
expert.
That's it.
I'm just a vessel.
A vessel. And he's using you to really propel his message and make it current. He's using you to propel his message and make it current so that the Kevin Samuels of the world and the ones that's going to rise, right? And you are going to be the Bianca of the world and the one that's going to rise. And it's that battle that we talk about, right? That good and that eat, right? So may God continue to use you. I want to thank you so much for availing yourself to a great conversation. You guys, it's a wrap. Chop it up. You already know. Make sure you guys like this episode. Like it, share it. This is such a powerful episode, and we definitely want you guys to tap in. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.